Okay, so thank you guys for coming on. I am Valerie King, CEO of VK Realty Group at Keller Williams Realty. And, you know, during this time, there's more need than ever to continue to share information about, how particularly real estate is being handled during, pandemic and COVID-19, because we have been affected, right? While I know the perception out there is that things aren't, there's nothing going on and everybody's staying home and, there aren't any sales happening, I'll show you in a minute how that is not the case, right? But before I get started, I just want to let you know that, this is our two-part session, and this second part here is about home selling during a pandemic in these uncertain times. And with me, I have two special guests that are going to share their take and their perspective within their respective fields for as it pertains to sellers during this time. And I have Stefan with Beauty by Design Home Staging, and I have Leticia Crespo with the Crespo Group as our real estate attorney professional. So thank you both.
Welcome.
And we'll kind of try and keep it to the point, and we won't keep you past the hour with some information for you as you're thinking about selling and when and how to get started. You can ask questions via the chat box. We will leave time at the end if you wanted to voice a question as well. And this is being streamed live. If you want to, if you're watching via live and want to ask a question that way, I'm going to try and keep an eye out for those questions as well. So I saw, Leticia, you were able to put your contact information in the chat box. Thank you. And Christine, feel free to do the same. And I'll do that a little bit towards the end as well. Okay. So I'm going to get started first with some information about the market. Let's get into reality of what's actually going on. These are similar statistics for those of you like Rebecca, who was on previous call. Same stats, same information. It's the same for buyer and seller, right? It's just how it's received on either end. Josie was kind enough to make it fancier for this call. So I'm going to share my screen in a second. So I'm actually going to start with, I have statistics for both Fairfield and New Haven County, right? So just to give you an idea of what's going on. In New Haven County, we have single family and condos, new listings. So new listings that have come on in March. You'll see for single families, condos, 1,100, almost 1,200 new listings that came on in March, which is right at the start of the pandemic. And then April, understandably, new listings have declined a little bit at 677, but there's still 677 new listings that have come on the market throughout New Haven County. For multifamily, significantly less. So in March, 105, and in April, 65 new listings, but again, still new listings. But the real number for sellers that you're going to want to know is, okay, new listings coming on, but are they sitting there, right? And the answer is no, right? So in March, we had, for properties that went under contract and closed in March, we have almost 1,100 homes, single family homes. And this is in New Haven County. And in April, we had over 1,500. So that number went up in April for single family and condos in terms of properties that have gone under contract and closed, which is good news for you as a seller, because that means that there is activity and there are buyers out there that still want to buy even during this time. For multifamilies, You'll see March 144 that went under contract and closed. In April 143. And then currently active, right? For single families, currently active over 2,000 single family and condos that are currently active. Now compare that number to 1,500 in April that went under contract and closed. So it's almost 1 for 1, right? Which means that the inventory that's coming on isn't keeping up with the demand. And so if in a month, almost everything that's on the market can go under contract and or close, right? That means that there's not enough inventory for buyers out there. And, you'll see similar for multifamilies. I mean, for currently active, that are currently active, 208. In April, 143 of them had gone under contract or closed in April. So that's good news for you guys as sellers. That means that there's not as many properties that you're competing against as you're getting on the market if you're one who is willing and able to list during this time. Let's see if I can switch over to my other. Sorry, I had it pulled up and it didn't end up staying up. So am I on? Sorry, guys. Technology. We gotta be patient, okay? And I just wanted to share real quick the Fairfield County numbers because I know a lot of you guys are here in Fairfield County. But similar takeaway. But again, with Fairfield County single-family homes, new listings in March were 1,400, went down to 794 for single-family, and multifamilies from 77 down to 45, right? Under deposits went up from 1,282 and closed to in April 1,768, so almost 1,800 single family and condos that went under deposit and or closed in April. And for multifamilies, from 92 to 85 went down, but still pretty high, pretty strong compared to what's currently active, right? 3652, over 3,600 that are currently active single family and condos compared to 1,700 that went under contract or closed in April. So that's like half, right? And with the multifamilies, 174 multifamilies that are currently active compared to the 85 and the 92 that went under contract and closed in March and April. So what does all that mean for you guys as sellers? It means that, yes, there's still a lot of uncertainty. Yes, there are less buyers. There are buyers that are waiting, right, during this time. But there are sellers that are waiting during this time too, right? And so the inventory was already low to begin with in many towns before the pandemic started. And then afterwards, those that didn't have to sell right away waited. And so you have an opportunity here as a seller, especially one that's motivated to get your home on the market and get more attention than you might have before, right? You've got people sitting at home some people that have nothing else to do but get on Zillow and Trulia and check out what's available on the market. And so you've got an opportunity to get eyes on your home, to hopefully get your home sold quickly. And even if you don't get it sold and under contract tomorrow, right away, as things open up, you're going to be your home will have been viewed and will have gotten attention. And while others that are just trying to get on the market and just starting to do the marketing process, you have been ahead of the game. Okay. So as we're talking about your home and getting your home on the market, what does that look like for you during this time? And so there are a number of different things that you're going to want to do to prepare yourself. For one is getting real and right with the current inventory and what's sold in the area. We're going to want to make sure your home is priced right, because that still matters during this time. There's a perception out there with buyers still that that the prices are going to be dropping and all that. So you're going to want to make sure that you're not overpricing your home during this time, because it'll end up being one of those that sit. You're also going to want to make sure that you connect with a professional who is able to move in this virtual time. So what does that mean for you? With our team, we're doing virtual consultations where we're able to talk to our clients virtually and have them tour the homes for us virtually so that we can get an idea of condition and still give our advice. We're still meeting with some clients in person as needed, right? And it's going to depend on comfort level and making sure that we're all safe. You're going to want to make sure as well that you're going to have someone who's going to be able to do virtual tours for you and virtual open houses, right, to market. We're going to want to make sure we have professional photography. Now more than ever, first impressions are going to be really important. So having good photos and having good video of your home available is going to be paramount in terms of getting the right marketing and getting people to view your property during this time. So, but there's some benefits that have come out of this, right? Whereas before with an open house, you were lucky sometimes if you got 10 people in the house during an open house. Now, with virtual open houses, we're getting people 200-300 views, in a video. So the exposure potential has expanded with the virtual open houses. So I imagine that'll be something that we're going to be looking to do more often, even beyond the pandemic. But just keeping that in mind, having someone who's going to be able to have the ability to keep you virtual and offer virtual tours for buyers who either may not be able to get out or who may not be comfortable with doing in-person tours. I have a buyer who bought a property practically virtually. We toured it virtually for her. We put an offer virtually, electronic signatures for her. She did her inspections virtually, and we'll be closing in a week's time from now. And is still thrilled and excited about moving forward. So that is happening. And I'm not saying that's across the board, but that is going on, and that's how your transactions are going to be affected during this time. So I'm going to move on to Christine, who's going to talk a little bit about things that you can do to help prepare yourself in your home to list and things that you should focus on, right? So Christine, what can sellers do and what should they be focusing on during this time?
Well, thank you very much for inviting me to be part of this panel today. I really appreciate it. And you're right, things have changed for all of us during this time, and it does seem a little uncertain. But the virtual tours are great. I have sat and watched open houses with people, just because I'm curious of what you guys are doing to help your clients in the best way possible. And I love that you guys offer that. Here at Beauty by Design Home Staging, we offer virtual consultations. So like you do your consultation and the walk through the home with the client with their phone or iPad or whatever, I can also offer that on my end as well. So they can walk through the rooms with me, and if I need a second look, they can move the camera for me, and I can give them suggestions and tips that will help present their home in a better light, because it's all about putting your best foot forward. And home buyers have consistently looked online. About 93% of people look online prior to actually going into a home anyhow. Now it's even more so since the pandemic has hit us. And so it's really important to stand out in the market. So what I usually like to tell my clients is, do yourself a favor, go on Trulio, Zillow, Realtor.com, HomeSnap, whatever is your poison, and go on there and actually look at homes in your market that are similar to your homes. Look at what they look like. I was on there the other day because I had a call from a gentleman in Hamden who is preparing to sell his home. And we were talking back and forth, and I said, have you looked at those homes that you're in competition with? Because it is a competition. You're trying to sell an item, and I try to remind my clients that yes, it's been your home and you've had a great life there, but now it's not your home. It's an item you're trying to sell. So you always, when you're selling your used car, you're cleaning it up, right? You're vacuuming out those carpets, you're cleaning the windows, making sure everything's spit shine, maybe waxing it, cleaning up the rims and the tires. You also have to do that with your home. So when you look at these other photos of other homes in your area, what I'm seeing, what I was just looking at for the price point of this gentleman's home in Hamden, many of the homes were either didn't use professional photographers, which is highly regrettable, I think, when you're selling a home. I think it's really important to have a professional photographer because they know the angles, they use the right lighting, they use the right lenses, and they present the home in a way that a cell phone cannot do. I also found that a lot of the homes that were older and maybe a little outdated, they seemed clean, but maybe not tidy because they were cluttered. And it made the house look even more dated. So when you walk into a home, that's usually a thing we're looking for is, oh, it's outdated. Everybody's looking for a turnkey ready property to walk into and have to do nothing with. So when you have a home that might have some outdated items like the kitchen, the big thing, kitchen and bathrooms, and those are not necessarily something you want to get into and invest a lot of money into to update prior to putting your home on sale, because you're not always going to get the return on that investment. So there are ways to draw the attention away from those things and bring the attention to what is really highlighted or should be highlighted in the home. We all live in our homes, so we all have our little messes and piles of paper here and laundry there, but it's always nice to have a third eye come in and just walk the property. Of course, right now it's difficult to do that. I don't go out, and I don't know any home stagers that are going out into the homes to do consultations for occupied homes. But like I said, we could do I suggest for any of you, if you're choosing to use a home stager, to do it with a virtual tour. But I do have some tips that you can really use today to help prepare. And you can use these now or later, it doesn't matter. They always apply. So it is spring. The weather's great out there today. I don't know if anybody's been out there today. It's beautiful out. So it makes me want to open the windows, take down the curtains, wash them up, wash windows. So I think we're all kind of in that mood, especially since we've kind of all been barricaded in the house for a long period of time. So while you're doing your spring cleaning, or even if you're not planning on doing spring cleaning, maybe you might want to consider a few things. So I always like to start from the front door, or even from the curb. If you can look at your home with an open mind from the curb, because curb appeal is a huge thing for people. If they pull up on a house that might be gorgeous, all redone and perfect inside, but the outside, the yard is unkempt, there are toys in the yard, there's a shingles hanging, or a shutter hanging, it just doesn't look good, and a lot of times they'll just drive by the home. So just step out to the curb, take a look at your property. How does it look? Does it look clean? Does it look neat? Do you think you might want to trim some bushes, maybe put some flowers in? Right now it's perfect with spring. We have a lot of flowering plants out there. You could actually bring potted plants in if you don't want to plant them. If you're not a gardener, just leave them in the pot and put them in the front yard strategically, or on the steps to go up so you're not blocking the stairs. But bring a pretty aspect to it. Bring that freshness of spring to it. And then when you step into the home, just kind of look for things like little nicks in your paint. The corners, I noticed like the corners in my house. I don't know what we do in here, but there's every corner has like a little chunk of paint or plaster or whatever out of it. And I'm like, what are we doing? So those little things home buyers are looking at. And when they start seeing little nicks here and there, they're thinking, either they didn't take care of this home, or, hey, I'm going to offer them less for this home. So we don't want to give them the opportunity to give an offer that is less than what you're willing to accept on your home. So staging is a great tool to make sure that you're getting the maximum amount of money on your home. And of course, staged homes, the statistics show that you can get up to 17% more for your home than an unstaged home in your area. That's huge, 17%. And I'm not saying 17% above list price, because I can't guarantee that. Nobody can. Nobody knows what the market's going to do. But it'll definitely be seen as a better move-in ready home turnkey if it is staged. If you take the little bit of time that it takes, and it really doesn't take a whole lot of time. So if you look at your bookcases and they're packed full with books, top to bottom, side to side, you may want to remove some of those. I know it kind of sounds silly, but it appears that there's no room for somebody to move in. And it's all about perception. Buyers are looking at, what would it look like when I come in? How could I possibly bring my stuff in? It's already full. Even though that stuff won't be there when they move in, they have that perception that they cannot move in because they can't fit their things in that home. Also, in your closets, open your closets up. If they are packed with your coats and your sleeping bags on the top and shoes just thrown on over the bottom, or even, I used to use a closet for all my file boxes and just throw them in there. And I realized, hey, A, that's a fire hazard, and B, doesn't look so nice. So things like that, remove some of the items. I'm not saying remove everything, but try to make sure when things are hanging in your closet, leave some space. I would say a ½ inch between hangers, and hang them, make sure everything's hanging in the same direction. Doesn't matter left or right, whichever works for you. Just make it a little more symmetrical so that it doesn't blow people's minds. Some people are very much neat freaks, and those little things just blow their mind, and they won't look at the rest of the house. The rest of the house won't matter. And again, like I said, the notches on the corners of your walls, then go through and look at the paint in your house. Do you have water stains? I know I have one in my office right now because we had a ice dam and the water came in through the roof. So I have a water stain there. So if you have water stains, if you have any I know we all have kids and they all tend to get messy sometimes. And hopefully we all had some latex paint on there so we could wipe it off really well. But if it's not, if it's an older home and the paint is older and it's more of a flat base paint, it doesn't clean up that well. So I would suggest looking at your paint really well. Great time to paint. You're able to open your windows up now, tape it off, go ahead and paint. And I would suggest neutral colors for you. Grays, beiges, whites, off-whites. You're better off staying in those safe zones. Add color in accessories, artwork, throws, pillows, furnishings, rugs, things like that. I'm just trying to think what else you could do. Make sure, like my backyard, we're getting ready to clean the wall of the garage. It has a lot of mildew on it. So things like that. It doesn't take a whole lot of work. It certainly doesn't take a whole lot of money, just a little effort on your part. Just clean it up good, because again, we want to give that appearance, not that you don't take care of your home, but people presume you don't if these little things are not taken care of. If you have loose floorboards in your hardwood floors, there are ways to fix that. There are all sorts of YouTubes that help you do that. So, and you can actually pick up the phone. I know the guys over at Lumber Liquidators, they're great at helping you fix those little things. So if you're not sure about it, go ahead and do it yourself, or give a professional a call. Bring a professional in to do that. Little things like that. Like I said, I wouldn't do major renovation. If you've got furniture in your room, which we all do, but there's no floor space and you can't see the floor, it might be time to move some of the furniture out of that room. And think about, you could take that furniture and maybe use it in another room. Like some people have big master bedrooms and they have the bed and the dresser and the 2 nightstands, but there's all this other space. So bring a big chair that might be in the living room that's a little too large for that room. Bring it in there, make a nice little reading nook. Just little things like that. When you hang artwork or mirrors, and mirrors are very important, hang them 5.5 feet. The center of the artwork or mirror, 5.5 feet from the floor. It's just a general thing that goes across the room and everything seems balanced. Mirrors are really important. If you have mirrors and you can put them by your front entrance when people walk in, it's a psychological thing. When they see themselves walking into the home, it's, hey, I see my face in this home. Now I can see my life in this home. Sounds a little crazy, but it does work. These little things do work. Make sure the house is cleaned really, really well for your photos, your virtual whatever showings, or the open houses. Make sure everything is in place. The floors are clean. There's no dust anywhere. Hoods, your hood for your stove, big thing people forget. It gets greasy all up underneath and dusty. The dust sticks to it. Use a good degreaser, get it all cleaned up. In fact, we're in the process of doing that with my kitchen because my hood doesn't work well, so it gets greasy everywhere. Anything else you can think I might be missing, Valerie?
Well, I mean, I heard some great things. I mean, I heard you talk about and low cost, right? Low cost, low budget things like cleaning, making sure you clean, declutter as much as you can in each room.
Yeah.
You know, painting is an easy fix to freshen up a space and a room inside and out if you can. You know, another thing that I would mention is if you can, if you haven't recently gotten your mechanicals serviced, that is something. It's not a staging thing per se, and it's something that I would recommend if it's something that hasn't been done in a few years for you.
Absolutely. I also suggest an inspection of the home prior, so that you know what might need to be done. So if it comes up in an inspection for a buyer, that you've already addressed that or you've already made concession for that. And I think, I mean,
you mentioned small things like floorboards and everything. We all have small projects that we have put off over the years, and that you know, this door doesn't close well or something, right? Those things that, I mean, if you've got the time to take care of those small projects that are noticeable, but that you've lived with, I definitely would take the time to be able to do those. And there are some things that matter more than others, right?
Absolutely. I know what drives me crazy is when I go into a home and the dishwasher opens, but you can't open the cabinet next to it while the dishwasher's open. Drives me insane. And the easy fix is just put the hinge on the other side of the door.
Of the door.
And I've suggested that to one of my clients, and he said, I've lived here 14 years, never thought of doing that. Just a simple, easy fix. Just turn it around. And all these things are very affordable, easy to do. And like I said, I'll when I do any type of consultation, virtual or walkthrough, I tend to get a little more detailed because each home has a different vibe about it or have different things going on.
And every person has different goals, right? And so, if you need to be able to get X amount of money out of this sale, what we would look at first is, what's the bare minimum that you can do to get this home on the market and sold, and what that number looks like. And then there may be a second number that says, well, if you put a little bit more money into it, what's that number? And does it make sense to do it? Because there may be, there are some homes where I've gone in and said, well, if you put 5,000 into it, you might be able to get back 15 based on what the market is showing and what the comparables show. Whereas with some, you're going to have to put a lot more work into it because it's more dated. And for those, oftentimes I'll let them know, clean it up, do the minimum that you can, get it on the market and get it sold, because you're going to end up putting money into it that doesn't make sense, right? So I definitely don't recommend you putting large amounts of money into a home that you're going to sell without talking to, your agent and or stager to determine whether or not it's going to make sense for you to do that, right?
Absolutely.
Anything to add?
I mean, a lot of buyers are looking for bathrooms that look like spas. Like they walk in and they feel like it's a spa. A great way to start that process, nice, white, fluffy towels. It's just that simple. Put a nice plant, maybe an orchid or maybe something green, depending on the bathroom, and some nice fluffy white towels. I have a colleague who says, I tell my clients, if your home does not look like a luxury resort, then it is not staged. And not all of our homes should look like a luxury resort, but if you're looking for the price point of a luxury home, you may want to make sure your home looks like a luxury resort.
I got it.
Yeah.
Now, I mean, granted, fluffy white towels is not going to do anything for a pink tiled bathroom, right? Like, I mean, that's just, and I hear what you're saying, right? There are small things that we can do that don't cost a lot to stage the room at whatever level you're in terms of condition, right? So with that,
Can I just mention one thing?
Yeah, please.
Okay, I just wanted to put an offer out there for everyone who's watching. The first 3 people who sign with VK Realty to sell their home, I am offering a free virtual consultation. So if anybody's out there ready to sign, Valerie will hook you up.
Oh, nice. Thank you. Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. Yeah, no, that's awesome. Because that is a cost, and that's a valuable benefit. So thank you, Christine, for that. I appreciate that. So now that you've talked about how to get started and some things that you can do to get it on the market, we've talked a little bit about what happens once you get it on the market with the virtual showings and virtual tours. What happens when you're under contract, once you've got it under contract, and that's where my friend Leticia Crespo steps in, the real estate attorney who's really stepped up during this time and shown herself as a professional and a leader, and can talk about how things are being handled on your behalf during this time. So Leticia, please.
Hi, everyone. Thank you again, Valerie, for having us all on your chat here and your live session. I think it's going to be very informative for a lot of people who are on the fence. So basically what I wanted to bring to the table here is just a perspective about, first, as I discussed in an earlier session, the positive news here. The positive news is that although there's a lot of negative information out there about how terrible things are and things are not happening, that's really just not the case in this industry for us. We are by nature right now essential workers, and executive order allows us to do that. And Valerie went over a lot of numbers here, and those statistics speak volumes, because on my end, I actually just get to the point where that closing occurs. And so they are really happening. Last month was really busy. March was exceptionally busy, but April really was busier than I thought it was going to be. I'm even surprised myself, but I think that in hindsight, it's only a day or so into hindsight of the month, but really realistically, I feel like we have tried to really innovate and pivot how we approach our businesses and make sure that we're giving the information that is accurate to our own industry. To make sure that people who are on the fence and not really sure about whether or not this is the right time to do so, it is the right time to do so. If you want to sell, we can make that happen, from the listing to the staging to your actual closing. So it is a little important, although we don't have a loan representative on right now, just so that you can be assured the closings are happening. People are getting financing. There's so many people who are essential workers who have been in the process of looking for a home for a while, or had been working to get to this very point so that they can be part of the spring buying season. And they have work, they are working, they're employed, and they can get a mortgage. April has shown itself to allow us to be pretty busy, exceptionally busy, quite honestly. I'm not even exaggerating, but it's been extremely busy for us. I personally am working almost 12 hours a day. Some days I'm working 15, and even on the weekends. Why? Because we're giving out a lot of information, so things are taking a little bit of more time, but they're happening. So we've really had to adapt each of our businesses, which I think we all have, because in order to survive, you have to do that. You have to innovate, otherwise it's just not going to work. So our businesses have adapted. And how have we adapted? So one of the things that we've done, in terms of, you're obviously going to have your listing agreement, and now you get a buyer who's interested in your property. You're going to expect to see certain things, and I want to be realistic. I'm not one of the attorneys who is saying that I'm refusing the COVID riders that are out there, or an addendum to the contract to protect everyone. I think it serves to protect everyone, and it's realistic and coming from a place of good faith, right? Because we know that this is a real factor in the industry. And if something were to occur where a person couldn't close, we're all trying to just be mindful that even if as a seller, something were to come up and your circumstances change due to this situation, that it could all be addressed. Now, moving on to hiring your attorney. When you have your sales agreement, your realtor is going to ask you to pick an attorney. I did mentioned it before. I think you want to be realistic right now about what reasonable fees should look like. I have shared in the chat what our fee agreement looks like. That hasn't changed in years. A couple things are a little bit more expensive, just really the title search is maybe like $5 more, but we haven't passed that cost on to our clients. It doesn't make sense. So you want to really take a look at what the fees are, and the ones that we're sharing are very realistic. They're in terms of these have been a staple in a consistent amount. So if you're seeing things that are a lot higher, I have explained to other folks that I have seen them be a little bit more pricey now, and I don't know if that's other attorneys are viewing themselves as a hot commodity and they can just kind of go up in price right now. I don't think it's appropriate personally. So ours are the same. So if you're whoever you decide to work with, try to stay in that ballpark. Mine's are right. Like that's what this should look like. It just shouldn't be higher, really way higher, triple than that. So needless to say, though, that's what that's going to look like. Our fee agreement does kind of go over the scope of services. Basically, it's really simple. We're just taking care of your paying off of your mortgage. The closing costs are there. They'll explain to you what your conveyance taxes are. You just really want to be prepared for what your net proceeds are going to look like when all these numbers start to be presented to you, including possible closing cost credits. In terms of what you're going to have to do when your buyer is cleared to close, meaning they are ready to get to the closing table, you don't have to be worried about having to come in and be in close contact with anyone in our office, or any office you go to should have adopted some type of a policy where they can create some distance. Ours, we have the ability to sign remotely. So that's with Zoom, FaceTime, WhatsApp, we can do that with you. So you don't have to literally be in a conference room with us. However, there are, that's a little, last month we did a bunch of them that way because some people just didn't want to come out, and we were able to accommodate that. But we have adapted and modified some of our office space has changed. We created 2 different lobby areas where it's you're behind glass. You just come into the front door. There's a lobby with a table, chairs, and that's as far as you get. And then there's another set of glass, and we can speak through FaceTime. But the importance of meeting in person is because when you notarize a document, it does have to be witnessed and acknowledged. The witness part right now has been waived through an executive order. However, we still have to observe that. So when we do it remotely, we do it by watching you with obviously the technology and the camera, but in person, we're doing it by watching you through glass and speaking that way. And then you're alone, you're in that area, you lock the door behind you, you don't have to come in contact with anyone or anyone trying to get in behind you. And we obviously ask our clients to come in with gloves, with their masks, and hand sanitizer, cleaning up the space before the next person comes in, doors and all that good stuff. And it kind of keeps the ability to get a little airflow in there, so if anyone's concerned. Because I think that's one of the concerns that I have seen, one of the issues that I have seen with sellers throughout the month have been, people just really wanting their home and sellers not being accommodating and not allowing them to come in. So there's, they've adapted how that could happen. But, if you're not sure that you're willing to work and be flexible in how the options are presented to you, then maybe this is not the time for you. However, if you are willing to work with everyone, and we have a lot of, you don't have to come up with these ideas yourself. We've already done that. We've had a month and a half almost of adapting our businesses and how these things take place to be able to bring that to you, so that if you're willing to do so, there are so many buyers who are ready to buy. It's just inventory is what the issue is. So if you're on the fence, I would say to get in at the end of the day. If you decide you don't want to, you can always it's not set in stone, right? Unless you're under contract. But I think that, at least start to at least get a temperature gauge of what it's like out there, and get into more details. But that's what I wanted to bring to tell you, is that, we are able to get them done. And your concern may be more likely than not, who's going to buy my home? They're out there, they're closing. We closed a lot of closing. Last month, we did about 22 in our office. So we were very busy, and they're happening. They're moving. So if you're on the fence, get off of the fence. Because Valerie's here to
And
help.
for those of you that missed some of the statistics we were sharing at the beginning, just to reiterate, with April, it was 1,700 under contract and closed single families just for the month of April, up from 1,400 from the month of March. So that, as Leticia said, there's a lot of activity. Now that said, right, I'll touch on briefly how buyers are being affected this time that are in turn affecting the sellers. So with the buyers, the rates are still historically low, right? So there are still great rates out there that are encouraging buyers to step out, get pre-qualified, and start looking. So that's good news for sellers. The lending requirements have gotten more restrictive, right, for buyers with minimum credit scores. So that means that you're going to want to make sure as a seller that you and your agent are confirming that buyers have updated pre-qualifications, nothing that's older than 30 days old, right? Because in March, lending requirements got much stricter, and so they've affected how whether or not somebody will actually be able to qualify for their mortgage. You know, and there are people that are losing jobs during this time and or being furloughed or having reduced hours. So you have mortgage contingencies in place that are affecting those, but understand that some of those things are happening too while you're in the middle of a transaction that no longer allow a buyer to be able to qualify. So, you know, finding out how solid the job is, the employment of the buyers are prior to, not to say you're going to restrict who you're going to sell to, but just understanding and knowing that that could be a factor, that appraisals are still being done, inspections are still being done during this time. How they're being done may be a little bit different, whether they're being done virtually with inspections and appraisals. Some are doing drive-by, some are doing actual full appraisals. So all of those things are factors that will affect your sale. But all that said, you know, professionals are working together and are still able to, in most cases, close deals within 30 to 45 days of a transaction, right? So just know that you're still going to be in a reasonable time frame to be able to sell your home because of legislation that's been put in place that Leticia discussed, and you know, what lenders are able and willing to do during this time to help the home sale process still happen in a reasonable time frame. So all that said, you know, at the end of the day, whether or not to put your home on the market right now is going to depend on you, right? And so what is your motivation and what's your comfort level? Because people will be, even with the homes, virtual staging, and the virtual tours, virtual open houses, there's still going to be some people and buyers that are going to want to and need to see the home. So, you know, what's your comfort level with having people in the home during this time? For some people, it may mean that you wait. If you're not comfortable, if you're high risk, and for others, if you're motivated and you're ready to go and you're able to work it out where you're able to be out the house during showings and working out those logistics with your real estate professional and how that's being handled, you know, the numbers show that now's the time. There are more eyes out there and there's less inventory and less properties on the market to go around for the buyers that still want to buy. So if you have any questions, I'm taking a look via the live feed and the chat box here. You see a couple of things that had. Oh, I saw a comment about the pink tiles being out of date. Yes, pink tiles are definitely out of date. And if you can work some magic and make that look updated, Pastor, then you know, more power to you. And again, that doesn't mean that you got to change your bathroom. It just means that you got to price it for what you have, price your home for what you have available, right? So any last minute things that Christine or Leticia that you'd like to share that you thought of before we go? Suriani was asking, are we going into a buyer's market now? And what do you see for this year given the pandemic? So it's a great question because, but right now the numbers are showing that we have very limited inventory and that there's not enough inventory keeping up with what's going on to contract and what's selling. So indicators right now are still showing a strong seller's market, okay? Now, as we open up, there's no one that's going to be able to predict whether there's going to end up being a whole flood of people that are going to put their homes on the market to sell that have been waiting, and how, whether or not that's going to keep up with the buyers that are out there. But what I can say right now is, and what I believe is that we're going to see a selling frenzy for a while when this thing opens up. And so that's going to be good news for sellers all around, and for the buyers that are ready, right? That are pre-qualified already and ready to go, will be able to have their first pick, right? Going forward, after 3 months after or so after this is all opened up, I can't tell you for sure whether it's going to lean more towards a buyer or seller's market. Leticia, I don't know if you want to weigh in on your thoughts on that, but all I can say is that people still need to buy, people still need to sell, and that the inventory will find its way to meet each side of the market. So if you're motivated and if you price it right and your home is staged well, it will sell.
And the great thing, staging your home when you're selling it, it doesn't matter whether it's a buyer's market or a seller's market, staging is definitely beneficial. It can help your house sell quicker in a seller's market. In a buyer's market. It can increase the amount of offers and start a bidding more, so that increases the amount of money or the return on your investment. So either way, you can make more money and get it sold faster regardless of the market. And like I said, none of us can control the market, but I do know that with the right team in place, your right realtor, your right attorney, your right stager, photographer, I think I'm missing somebody, inspector, and whoever else should be in our team, I apologize. If you have the right team together, then we can make sure, and we are absolutely certain, that you will make the most return on your investment, and that we can make sure you maximize the equity in your home.
I just wanted to add, there's a specific seller out there in this sense, is that if you're not sure and you've been thinking about selling your home and you've been holding it as an asset in terms of it appreciating, and at some point feeling like you wanted to cash out of it and to just be looking at it as a commodity, I think that it's important right now, because we don't really know essentially which total direction the future is going to look like. Right. But what we can tell you is that the values have appreciated such that we've gotten out of the recession numbers of 2008, 2006, right? So we're not in that area, and those values have been increasing and they're holding steady. And we are, if we had to take a snapshot of where we are, they're really up there. So if this was something that you were thinking about on the flip side, because if you really have to assess risk or not, you might want to strike while you can, because we don't know which direction down the road it's going to take. But if you want to take the risk and ride the wave, you can do that. But right now, if you know tangibly what it looks like right now with an appraisal, with a CMA, and you want to take advantage of that, or at least ask Valerie for a CMA. What is my home worth right now? What do you think we could sell it for? So that could be a deciding factor for you and push you over the edge. Because again, you don't want to be one of those people from 20, almost 19 years ago, right? That said, oh, I will just keep waiting. Well, then some of them had to kind of start again for the reset. We're having enough of a reset right now. You don't want to, with everything else socially and everything like that. So, if you want to let that be one of your additional deciding factors, it's something we could quantify today versus hanging tight and see what happens in 6 months. We can't tell you that. We can quantify it now.
Right.
Kind. Exactly. To the extent we can measure, values of real estate, right?
Correct. And, we don't know how long this is going to go, right? There's all kinds of conversations about opening things up, But if those numbers start spiking again, we could go right back to where we are today, right? And so all of that is going to affect, you know, in terms of buyers that have their jobs now that maybe don't have it 2-3 months from now, right? If this continues on, that could end up affecting those things. So that's why I say, until we see, you know, until we're in few months, it's really hard to be able to say which direction this is going to shift for sellers and for buyers, right? What our new normal looks like. You know, are we going back in the fall and for schools, right? So are people going to be having to do online distance learning? I'm hoping not. I got 3 children on my own. Okay, we need to go back to school, and right, I'm not necessarily in a rush to send them back tomorrow either, back to school. So I say all that to say the market is all we can talk about, like Leticia said, is what the numbers were going into from March and April, going into May, and what's sold. And so I can tell you right now, as a seller, you're in a great position to be able to sell and to maximize your profits today. 3-6 months from now, I don't know what that looks like yet. So if today's not the time for you, and again, it's all dependent on your level of comfort. If today's not the time, check back in with me just before you're thinking about putting it on the market, so that we can look at what that picture looks like at that point, right? But I strongly encourage you to reach out to myself, and you know, we all, Christine and Leticia, all put their contact information in the chat box as well. If for those of you on Facebook Live, if you're wanting me to share any of the contact information, as well as Leticia put her seller fee agreement on there, will send me a message, and I'll be happy to share that with you guys. So if there's no final questions, I'm going to let you guys all go and enjoy the rest of your weekend. So thank you again, Christine and Leticia, for your expertise and for your time. And I hope that all of you guys that were attending and watching was able to get a little bit of something out of this to help you in your decision making for selling your home. All right. Thank you so much.
Welcome.
Have a great weekend.
You too.
All right. Take care.
Bye.